for us that early in the morning for you. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me, and you are the future of the organizations you're working with. So I wish you success.
Thank you, Jeff. Over to you, Megha.
Shrika, thanks a lot, Jeff. Okay, without waiting a lot, thanks a lot, Sandeep, for this wait. I'll quickly introduce the topic that Sandeep is talking about and a few words about Sandeep, and then hand it over. So this talk that we're going to have right now is about one more positive thing about COVID. I know we did this small activity in the beginning, and this is something like a after effect of it. So the speaker believes that COVID has been a great equalizer and a great teacher in so many ways. We would get to know about how the pandemic taught government, industry, employer, team, and the speaker himself the true value of being agile. So the speaker that we have here is known as a product champion and the one who have successfully implemented Scrum in a lot of marketing teams, and we all know how hard that is. So please welcome none other than Mr. Sandeep Singh. Sandeep, on to you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Sandeep.
Perfect. So Jeff is going to be hard
Sandeep, I
to follow, as you correctly pointed out. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you. Your audio breaking a little bit.
Okay, I hope it holds up well. I've been having connectivity issues. Let's see how it goes. So yeah, I mean, amazing listening to Jeff. Gives me goosebumps actually to follow him up on a talk, to be on the same stage. And thank you to the organizers for this opportunity. Now, a little bit about myself. As you suggested, I am a lead product for RateGain, been part of agile journey for a lot of teams in the as part of my background. I'm a self-proclaimed agilist, still learning, still improving, but nowhere close to being perfect. So in this talk, I'm going to be focusing on sort of a positive aspect of COVID. I know there's a lot of negativity attached to COVID, but it's been a great journey as far as I'm concerned in terms of us as a company, us as a team, our industry, the hospitality industry that we serve, our customers, our users, all adapting and evolving and kind of stepping up to the challenge and becoming more agile in the process. So let me take you on this ride. I hope everybody enjoys it. So starting off with my team, and when I say my team, it's basically my product team that reports directly to me. It's a handful of product managers, as well as the extended team, the developers, the designers that we work with. And in general, pre-COVID, it was sort of a lot of busy work for us. It was a lot of hustle, things we kind of did to keep ourselves busy and feel good about ourselves, but not much of it was productive. And a lot of that changed pre-COVID. I'll explain the next slide. Also, although we sort of call ourselves a Scrum shop, we believe in quarterly plans, yearly plans, then breaking them down into sprint plans, just like most of the other teams, other companies our size. But we were actually a long distance far away from where a truly agile team would be. And that's kind of related to the next point, which is kind of percolated down to marketing plans as well. And a lot of times marketing plans were sort of set in stone ahead of time with limited adaptability along the way. And COVID played a major role in changing all of that. So let me take you to the post-COVID slide, which has this nice COVID on the top right. How did things change? So things change when us as a company saw the crisis. A lot of our customers were going down as we serve hospitality customers, hotels, their revenue managers in terms of them sending out rates, sending out information, availability information, rates from their system to, let's say, booking.com, expedia.com. And then also on the business intelligence side, where we help them with telling them, hey, this is where your competitor is being priced. This is where you could be off in terms of parity across different online booking sites. And this is what the recommended steps are for you. Now, a lot of those hotels, unfortunately, started closing down. We also serve a lot of travel players, a lot of airlines, cruises, ferries, car rental companies, and so on and so forth. And they were also hit pretty badly. So a lot of furloughs, a lot of layoffs within that industry. And that, as a result, hit us as well. So about 3 months ago, we went through some serious rounds of pay cuts, furloughs, and we fortunately didn't have to lay people off. But I think furlough in today's situation was a bad enough condition. Now, all of that resulted in us getting seriously resource crunched. And that in turn led to team trying to get as innovative as possible, as efficient as possible in terms of making the most with what was left. And that led to us being very strict around prioritizing the things we were investing our time into. And as Jeff pointed out, it's not exactly the number of people always. It's in majority of cases is what exactly you ask those people to do, how strict you are with prioritization, how efficient you are and adaptive you are as a team. So that reality hit home, and fortunately the team adapted. And we have been very strict in terms of what we put on each sprint. It has to be in direct connection with what the customers are asking for. But prior to that, those deliverables are. So resulting in a lot of true agility within the team. Obviously, the collaboration improved as well. And this is counterintuitive, because how can being virtual improve connectivity, improve collaboration? And the fact of the matter was, just because we were so resource crunched, we had to be very careful about each other's time, about leveraging each other's learnings from the past. And as a result, kind of using collaboration as a tool, which helped us reach our goals. Also, changing resourcing conditions. So it wasn't just the initial furloughs, we were actually seeing resource changes practically every single week. And team had to adapt constantly and consistently to be on top of that. Now, the same story, or kind of similar story, was happening on our user side. So our users are these people, and especially this girl called Sue, who's a revenue manager. And she's the one who's responsible for making these calls around, hey, how's the demand for my hotel rooms is going on right now? How it's gonna shape up in future? So demand forecasting. At what rate should I be pricing my rooms so I get the maximum revenue per available room? So revenue per available room is the key metric that Sue gets measured on. And how do I optimize it? So occupancy has to play a great role as well. Average daily rate has to play a great role as well. And how do I balance all of these factors to get the maximum efficiency and revenue for my hotel? So a busy girl, Sue, and pre-COVID, Sue wasn't that agile, right? So how she was not that agile? She actually relied a lot on reports like these. So this is sort of a snippet from STR, Smith Travel Report, which is not a bad thing by itself, but what it provides is actually this year versus last year comparison. Like, where was the average daily rate for rooms for a hotel last year, same time? How did the demand look? What kind of events were there? What shaped the demand? And then Sue was kind of driving ahead, looking into the rearview mirror, looking at all of this data. And Sue, being sort of a young girl, was still a lot more agile than some of the older revenue managers. Nothing against the old people, but the industry is such that there's a lot of decision making that still happens based on instincts and historic facts. And people just assume past trends to continue. Let's say if, some large business groups booked your hotel last year. People just assume that business is going to come back. And that results in a lot of surprises, a lot of places where you're not agile enough and adaptive enough to leverage the latest and greatest facts and the changing market. And obviously, in that world, pre-COVID world, life was pretty simple for Sue and for her colleagues. Now, post-COVID, a lot of that changed. And as you folks must have experienced firsthand, hotels were the hardest hit. All kind of crazy business going around. And how they were hit? They were hit in terms of getting closed out because nobody was booking them except for the health workers, except for people traveling for fighting COVID itself. So they had to adapt. And they were adapted by doing multiple things. They adapted by, let's say, converting their hotel into a hospital. They adapted by converting their hotel into sort of an education center, retention center for people who are fighting COVID. They also had to adapt around the changing resourcing and financial situation, almost on a weekly basis, just like the team we had, right? So in their case, they were constantly keeping an eye on the fundings they were receiving from the government, their overall financials, profitability, and making changes on the fly, on the go, to be on top of the situation. And also, they became a lot more tech savvy. So as this tweet kind of reads out, I'm not sure if you guys can read it, but Mark is a big shot in hospitality industry. And this is him telling the world that within a few weeks of span, they actually implemented some huge amount of automation within their hotel. And they kind of leveraged a lot of technology for their decision-making versus relying on the gut. So all of that started happening. And also, they started looking at the real-time data more and more. And this actually is a report that RateGain, my company, did with Skift, where we are keeping an eye on a weekly basis on the overall recovery of hospitality market, travel market in general, all the leading indicators that shape hospitality demand and so on and so forth. And almost all the revenue managers in the world have basically become very used to seeing something that's from the last week versus looking at STR, the Smith Travel Report, which is same time last year. And it did not stop there, because as a company, we had to adapt our product as well. And this is by far the most interesting part of our journey with COVID. Even pre-COVID, we were kind of looking at these products that could give us more real-time information, but the trigger simply wasn't there from our user side, from revenue management side. So pre-COVID, this is a snapshot of one of our products called Optima. I know it's a lot to take in, but the general summary is it gives you an indicator of where you are. So this is your rate, 91, compared to your competition average. So you're 24% below the comp average for 3rd of June, the check-in date, right? And it tells you where you are the lowest, where you're the highest, by how far. It also gives you information about the availability in your market, like which out of your competitors are open for sale for that particular check-in date, and so on and so forth. So all the business intelligence you need to make decisions, but still it was heavily reliant on scheduled daily and weekly pricing reports, pricing intelligence reports that a revenue manager like Sue would consume, let's say on a daily basis, but she was still looking at like past 24 hours of data. And most of the time she was actually looking up that report just to prepare a report for her, let's say, getting the report at 10 a.m., preparing a report for her 11 a.m. daily meeting, but still looking back into the rear view mirror, looking at the past 24 hours of action. And this simply didn't work out in highly dynamic markets where rates change practically on an hourly basis. Let's say an airport, a hotel that's located close to the airport, a hotel that's located at the city center, where things are very, very dynamic. And your competitors are actually trying to leverage the changing market situation on the fly, on the go. And if you're not keeping an eye on it, you're left behind. So how did it change in post-COVID world? And this is where we started leveraging the situation to build something that revenue managers could use in real time to stay on top of their market, to be as agile as possible. And the answer wasn't those sort of after the fact reports, even though they are helpful. We started investing in building into something a lot more real time. So this is a snapshot from a product we built called MarketDRONE, which, as the name suggests, kind of hovers over your market and watches it in real time. We actually did a lot of innovation on technical side. We started leveraging our distribution capabilities, where distribution capability is basically the engine that hoteliers were using to publish rates out to Booking.com and Expedia.com of the world. We started leveraging that to start picking up rates in real time and pushing them in form of notification. So this is what a revenue manager's notification feed would look like. You're actually watching the market on a per minute basis now as to how your competitors are changing rates. What's the delta in rates? What's the magnitude of rates? Now, have they changed by 2%, 5%? Have they gone up or down the general direction of change? So you can make a lot more informed and agile decisions around your own pricing based on what's happening in the market around you. Another change is just the proactive nature of this information, right? So this is when a revenue manager clicks one of those notifications and you see what exactly changed in the market. So one of your competitors actually, from close state, it was selling before, went to 76 about 15 minutes ago. One of them actually stopped selling. Another one stopped selling. This one was close, but started selling at 70. And if there are any deltas in rates, those are highlighted as well. And a lot more information around intraday changes. So we started giving these insights around, hey, this is in general, your market is moving not on a day-by-day basis or week-by-week basis or same time last year, same time last month basis, but actually on an hourly basis. So if you look at the timestamps here, we actually give you the trend where you're going versus your market is going practically on an hourly basis. So 10 a.m., 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 2 p.m., you get this new visibility into your market to make a lot more efficient and agile decision making. And last but not the least, we actually used COVID as an opportunity to tweak our marketing message as well, because initially our entire marketing pitch around this feature was about, hey, a cool new way of staying real time, this and that. But since the COVID situation struck us and the industry, we had to adapt our marketing pitch to be more and more COVID sensitive, where we said, hey, just because the hoteliers are a lot more cost sensitive now, let's not talk about features because that's something they're least bothered with. Let's talk about cost savings this particular feature can bring them. So these are actually snapshots from our marketing deck, our sales, the deck that sales team uses, market focus decks, where we started talking about the cost savings, save up to 50%. How can MarketDRONE as a product, as a tool, can augment and help you with the COVID recovery as your competitors and you kind of recover from the situation as the situation picks up. MarketDRONE will be the one that will tell you first when the earliest sign of recovery is, for which check-in date market has already started looking positive, and where to hold off on increasing your rates and things of that nature. So overall, this was a very, very sort of great learning experience, and it changed the way we work, obviously, and we are all remote. We're all still collaborating even more effectively than before. And this has showed us that all the resource demands that we were making to our top leadership weren't really justified in majority of cases. We could do a lot more with a lot less. And as this quote goes, I'll leave it with this quote, guys. This was a crisis that we didn't let to go to waste, and we use it as a great learning opportunity to do things that we never thought we would be able to do. So with that, stay safe and stay agile. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep. I don't see some questions yet, but I'll request participants to either raise their hands or put questions on the question answer forum so that we can call you out and you all can really interact with Sandeep.
Perfect. Thank you.
I see Binaya. Binaya, I've added you. You can unmute yourself and ask a question.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me? I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Sandeep. Wonderful
Hey,
to listen.
hey, Binay, we can't see you here.
Let me know how to switch on my video. I'm not very sure. View option. Okay. Okay. Not sure.
Okay, go ahead. Don't worry. Now you have put yourself on mute. Yep.
Yeah. Now I can switch on. My
Yeah. Good. Great.
Hi, Sandeep. Great to listen to you. A quick question. In marketing teams, if you have implemented Scrum, I just wanted to understand how is it different from a software organization, and what are the challenges specific to the Scrum if implemented? And I'm assuming that some of those things are there.
Yes. So it wasn't particularly connected to this transformation that I spoke about, but in the past I've worked with the marketing teams. I used to be an agile coach with my previous organization where I implemented Scrum with HR team, IT team, marketing team, obviously software development team. So overall 20 plus teams. To your point and question, the challenges that marketing team faced were actually very similar to the challenges a development team would face or an HR team would face, right? And the challenges sort of rooted from the Scrum team itself kind of having different reporting structure and different priorities, right? So a typical marketing team in our world used to be a combination of designers, the marketers, and developers and QA folks, right? And typically they would report into 3-4 different departments, right? So the very first challenge was how to get them all together. So we basically did some basic changes around putting them together as a Scrum team. I used to have a lot of agile education sessions with them, and we sort of stayed away from the jargon. We never used the term sprint review or sprint retrospective because that would scare the marketers. Instead, we sort of stayed with, hey, let's talk about a practical way of doing things, and let's talk about how we can take a stop along our journey and take a look back and improve things. So sort of use very generic terminology, didn't try to overload them with all the jargon. That was one. Then putting together a sort of tightly knit Scrum team, despite the reporting structure. I personally used to be their Scrum Master, at least for the first few months when they were starting out on that journey. And then the third most important thing that we did was to have a common unified backlog where the QA folks, for example, weren't being fed an entirely different set of priorities compared to the marketer folks and the designer folks. If they were part of a Scrum team, they basically fed off of a single unified backlog. So those 3-4 major steps actually went long way in them functioning as a very, very tightly knit Scrum team, very efficient team. And obviously there were a lot more sort of optimizations along the way, but those 3-4 things sort of did it for us.
And sorry, Sandeep, for leaking that information. Actually, it was me who told about it, that you worked in you implemented Scrum in a marketing environment.
Sanjay.
And Binay, Yeah, yeah. And I believe I have that slide deck which Sandeep shared, I think, a long back with us. So if you want, I can share it with you. So I believe we have that.
And
Sure,
Sandeep,
sure, Sanjay, definitely.
I would also like to take an opportunity to kind of ask you. I had I had an opportunity where I could work with the marketing team. What my challenge was that every time I work with marketing and they think of agile or Scrum, they're like, "Oh, I need this thing tomorrow, or I need this thing yesterday. Get it done." So like getting that vision and roadmap or backlog from them was the hardest thing. Like I don't know if you can give me any shortcut to get through that.
Right. There's no shortcut. There's none. But it was actually a problem we faced as well, right? Because marketers, I think majority of, I wouldn't say majority, but let's say 30-40% of their work is very reactive, which is like, hey, this competitor just lost one big customer, and this is one opportunity we can potentially capitalize on. It obviously cannot wait till the next sprint cycle. So those were the kind of challenges they were facing, right? And one of the things we did was, hey, at least initially, let's do a couple of sprints where 100% of our sprint commitments are decided at sprint planning, even though I didn't use the term sprint planning. And let's observe and record. And very well, soon enough, like after 2 of those cycles, it became very clear that it wasn't really working for those kind of reactive kind of work they had to do. So what we started doing was we started sort of only planning for 50 to 60% of our capacity for longer term initiatives that could be planned, could be passed neatly into sprints, and we could follow through on them. 30 to 40% of the bandwidth based on the past observations was reserved for ad hoc work, which could come anytime, and in majority of cases it did. So that solved the problem to a large extent.
Thanks a lot, Sandeep. We have one more question from Abhijit Mahajan. He's asking, how is this all different than AI, artificial intelligence in Scrum?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. Can the question?
I'm not sure, but I think and I'll try to see if that makes sense. So what he's trying to say is that we talked, you talked about a lot what was pre and post COVID, right? So COVID kind of gave that runway and that length to getting things do in a different way, perceive things in a different light. So maybe his question is, can we call all this like an AI? Can AI be part of Scrum? Like, can there be an artificial intelligence that could be added to Scrum? If I could get the context right.
Right. Yeah. So if I understand the question correctly, it's about, hey, can we assist the Scrum process by using artificial intelligence or machine learning? And I'm not sure if it was in the context of the product that I explained, MarketDRONE, if it was, but in general, I think, why not? So Scrum as a methodology and Agile as a philosophy has nothing against artificial intelligence, right? And these are just tools and techniques that you could use to enhance your functioning if it helps you becoming more agile. In our case, it was revenue managers using more real-time rate intelligence to their benefit and being more adaptive and reactive to it versus sitting on information for a day and a week where the market was too dynamic for them to do anything, and they were sort of doing reactive damage control most of the time. So yeah, if artificial intelligence and machine learning can assist you being more adaptive and agile, so be it.
Thanks a lot. Abhijit, I hope that answers your question. We have Ajay as well who wants to go for a question. Ajay?
Yeah. Hi, Sandeep. This is Ajay Kabra.
Yeah.
And you did mention COVID creating some kind of an opportunity to improve. So my question is around crisis. You know, I recall back 2001 when 9/11 happened and the world started recognizing the value of security and all that. Very near future, near distant past, we had 26/11, the Taj attack happened. Now we have COVID. So my question is, you know, you were doing Agile earlier. It's not that we were not doing Agile. Yes, we were having security before the Taj incident in India happened, or, you know, 9/11 happened, the airports had security and all. my question to you is, what do you think is the reason that we, the world, wakes up to new ideas, new opportunities, new challenges? And do we always need a pandemic or a crisis or a catastrophe to do it? Because that is what the history is telling me. If you look at the entire history, we have always emerged more powerful, better after a crisis has happened. Because possibly this is a way that the human nature works, or we get into a complacency mode. I don't know. Your thoughts?
Sure. That's a very interesting question. And I've actually pondered on it at length in the past. So again, some observations, and it's not a hard stance on anything. But I think you're right. We as human beings become complacent about teams. The banner blindness kind of takes over, where if you see the same problem 36 times a day, and if you haven't acted on it, let's say in the first few months of you being with the company or you being with the team, you kind of start accepting it, right? And that's the exact cycle, the exact sort of mental model that a crisis breaks for you, right? That's the first thing the crisis does. It kind of erases the slate clean, and it says, hey, dude, you were complaining about lack of bandwidth with 8 developers before, and guess what? The bandwidth has just been halved. So let's see what you can do with 4, right? And then now that you've been pushed into a corner, the creativity, the innovation, the need to change and sort of think outside the box kind of takes over. And now you start saying, hey, getting more resources out of the equation. The battle I've been fighting for like 6 months, not happening. And this time I can't blame the CEO for cost cutting. This time I can't blame even the CFO for cost cutting. This time I have to make do with the remaining 4. And that's when the optimization, the true optimization starts happening. And agile, I think Jeff kind of touched upon in his talk quite beautifully, was it's not about how many people you have, it's about how efficient they are in their working, right? And most of my talk was about that as well, right? Where we were like using the crisis and the tools, the changed collaboration model, the changed urge for doing more with less to our benefit. And I think, unfortunately, in many cases, it's a crisis that kind of pushes you to start doing those things. So, yeah, I hope that makes sense, Ajay.
Yeah, it makes sense. And just to on a follow up, and I'm a little sarcastic here, I'm being honest. So I believe that every time I should pray for a crisis to happen for the world to improve for better. That's the way of, that's the innovation trick. That's the only innovation trick that I know now, that something wrong should happen. And I pray something wrong happens so that the world will improve.
Right. I think another way,
being nice is not helping the world is what I'm trying to come back.
Yeah, no, Ajay, that's $1 million point. And I think we as leaders within our organizations can simulate crisis, because we don't really have to go through a pandemic for all of these things. I totally get your point. We can simulate crisis. I've had CEOs who in the past understood the meaning of adding more people doesn't necessarily mean getting more work done. And beyond a certain point, they were reasonable. It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to cut your team by half for no reason, and let's see if you can work. They were reasonable, but beyond a certain point, they put their foot down. They were like, hey, even though you have budget, but you're not getting more people, you get whatever you need to get done with the whatever people you have in your hand. And I think that kind of leadership, thought leadership and actions from those top leaders kind of then forces you into thinking outside the box and going through this innovation cycle. So yeah, a crisis can be simulated in certain ways to get to the same fact.
Yeah, I agree. Crisis can be simulated, but at the end of the day, behind my mind, I know it is only a simulation. But COVID is a reality. That's the big difference.
I think. Thanks a lot, Ajay, for that question, and thanks, Sandeep, for all this interactive session. I think that's a very good thought that everybody in here is going to take back and think through. So thanks, Ajay, for that. I think we're running out of time, so we won't be able to take up more questions, although the questions are flowing in, Sandeep. So thanks a lot for that wonderful experience and sharing all